Hey guys, um, most of you probably know that you have a test on the unit circle coming up, so I thought I'd do a video on it. I'm gonna go a little slow. I'm gonna start with some of the things we do know, and then we're gonna build on that. So let's, like I said, start with the things we do know. Like this here is either 0 degrees or 360 degrees. This here is 90 degrees. This here is 180 degrees. And this here is 270 degrees. So that would make this 45 degrees because it's in between 0 and 90. So let's write that on the inside. Oops. 45 degrees. This is 30 degrees and this is 60 degrees. And if you look carefully, there's a little bit of disproportion here. And if I fill it in like that, you can see that this right here is 15 degrees and this right here is 75 degrees. We're going to focus more on these because these are the ones we'll be encountering the most. So I'm going to convert the first quadrant into radians. So to convert theta in degrees to radians, I have to multiply it by a whole circle in radians by a whole circle. I can't fit it up there, there's a little thingy up there. So theta in degrees times a whole circle in radians by a whole circle in degrees. So that cancels out the degrees. This also can be simplified further. So that can be simplified to pi over 180. And that'll give me theta in radians. So 0 times pi over 180 is 0. 30 times pi over 180 is pi over 6. 45 is pi over 4. 60 is pi over 3. 90 is pi over 2. 180 is pi. 270 is 3 pi over 2. And then if we come back over here, 360 times pi over 180 is 2 pi. And now if I trace on over to the opposite side of the y-axis, I can add half pi to the corresponding values. For example, pi half plus pi over 3, pi half plus pi over 4, pi half plus pi over 6. And if I trace down here, and the same applies. I can add pi to pi over 6, pi plus pi over 4, and pi plus pi over 3. And again, if I trace over to the other side, ooh, that's real messy, but it's fine. I can add 3 halves pi to over 3, pi over 4, and pi over 6. And if we go past a full revelation, we can come over here and add 2 pi, but don't really need to worry about that. You can add way more than 2 pi. You can add 10 pi or 300 pi. That would be going around 150 times. Around the circle 150 times. I'm going to erase this because I need this space for more information. So now let's talk about the coordinates of the unit circle. So this coordinate right here, this one right here, is 1, 0. This one right here is 0, 1. This one right here is -1, 0. And this one right here is 0, -1. So that means that the radius of the circle is 1. So now let's talk about the quadrants. The coordinates for these three. So the way I remember the coordinates for these three is pi over 3 is halfway on the x-axis. So I'm going to draw that out. So halfway on the x-axis. So this is going to be half here. 30 is halfway on the y-axis. So my y is going to be half. And then 2, 3, 2, 3. Everything divided by 2. And every numerator gets square rooted. And since the square root of 1 is 1, I'm not square rooting 1. And these are the coordinates of the three main angles we're working with. So if I move over to this side, so if I moved from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2, my x values will be negative. And in quadrant 3, all my values will be negative. And in quadrant 4, my y values will be negative. So now let's talk about what do we do if we're trying to find a value on the circle, like one of the values over here. Like, what if it's a value something like the degree of 80? How are you going to find what value that is over here? So 80 would be somewhere over here, right? What value would that be? So if I drew a triangle, I'm just gonna use 60 for this example. So if I use this triangle here, 60, so I'm gonna draw it over here. It's not perfect, but whatever. 60. This is my radius, my radius of 1, and this is my y values, and this is my x value. So if I do cosine of 60, I get adjacent over hypotenuse, so that's x over 1. And if I do sine over 60, I get y over 1. So what if I replace 60 with just theta? I get cosine theta equals x, and sine theta equals y. So my x and y coordinates can be found by using cosine theta and sine theta to find those values. we're going to talk a lot more about this, and we're going to talk a lot more about how to use the unit circle and some of the stuff like graphing, cosine and sine. The values that we use to graph them are from the circle. So if you know the circle, you can graph them, no problem. One more thing that we will talk about, but I'm not sure if we're going to talk about it next week or later, is when is our trig functions positive or negative. So since all our values in the first quadrant is positive, all of them are positive in quadrant 1. In quadrant 2, our x's are negative. So is our radius, I believe. No, it's not. Our radius is positive. Our radius is negative in quadrant 3 and 4. So here, sine and cosecant are positive. And here, tangent and cotangent are positive. And here, cosine and secant are. And the best way to remember that is all students take calculus. So all students take calculus. All students take calculus. And that's how you remember it. So I would watch this video and I would hold on to or keep it somewhere I can look at it as many times, because this is going to be relevant for most of the class, or at least half of the class. So I would do my best to learn this. I would recommend memorizing only the first quadrant and then just rationalizing how you want to how you want to rationalize the other quadrants. So like I said, you can, for example, add your angle. So like if you're past 90 degrees, add 90 degrees to your corresponding angles. So I think that's it. If there is anything you need help with, you can contact me through Canvas, and I usually leave my phone number in the email. So contact me if you have any questions. Professor Pochin and Augustina and I will be holding sessions too, but I thought I would make this video for those who can't make it to the session and for those who just don't have the right scheduling for reaching out for one-on-ones either. So this video is for whoever can't make it to see me or Professor Pochin or Augustina because of life or whatever craziness is going on in their life. So I hope this helps. Please contact me, Professor Pochin or Augustina, if there's anything you need, and I'll see you around.